Emily stood on her porch that cold morning with her small travel bag held tightly in her hands. The wind brushed her hair across her face, but she didn't move it away. She just stared at the silver car parked in front of her house, the car she had seen hundreds of times before. But today it felt different. Today it carried a weight she wasn't ready to face. Ryan stepped out of the car and walked toward her with the kind of soft smile he always used when he didn't know what she was feeling. He had been her closest friend for years, the person who showed up when she was overwhelmed, the person who listened when she couldn't put her fears into words. Their friendship had always carried something unspoken, something warm, something that hovered carefully between them. They never named it, and they never dared to cross the line. But they both knew it was there. "Morning," he said with a small nod. Emily forced a smile. Hi, she wished she could say more, but every word felt heavy. Today she was leaving their town, moving to Seattle for a job everyone said would be great for her. She told people it was a new chapter, a new opportunity, a fresh start. But deep down, she was leaving because she didn't know how to handle the feelings that had grown between her and Ryan. She didn't know what she wanted from him or what he wanted from her. And running away felt easier than dealing with them. "Truth? You ready?" Ryan asked. She nodded, but the nod didn't match the ache in her chest. She walked down the steps, her footsteps slow, almost hesitant, as if each step away from her house pushed her closer to a goodbye she wasn't prepared for. When she reached the car door, she paused. She looked at the passenger seat and felt a strange rush of memories: late-night drives, early morning coffee runs, road trips where they sang old songs and laughed until the sun came up. That seat held more of their history than either of them admitted. She slid in and buckled the seatbelt. The click sounded louder than usual, like something final. Ryan got in beside her and started the engine. The moment the car pulled away from her house, Emily felt a shift in the air. The street outside the window moved quickly, but her thoughts moved faster. She wondered whether she was making the right choice. She wondered whether Ryan knew that she wasn't leaving because she wanted a new city. She was leaving because she was afraid of what staying might mean. They drove in silence at first. Not the comfortable silence they usually shared, the kind that felt like soft company. This silence felt stiff, as if they were both holding words inside that they couldn't let out. The hum of the engine filled the space between them, but it didn't soften the tension. Emily looked out at the passing houses and tried to steady her breathing. She wanted to ask if he would miss her. She wanted to know if this goodbye hurt him the way it hurt her. She wanted to know if, after today, he would think of her when he looked at the passenger seat that she used to fill. Ryan cleared his throat. "So, long day ahead." She gave a short laugh. "Yeah, I guess so." They both knew the conversation was shallow, almost forced, but neither of them was ready to dig deeper. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones spoken too late. As they merged onto the main road, Emily noticed the way Ryan held the steering wheel just a little tighter than usual. She knew his habits well, how he tightened his jaw when he was nervous, how he tapped the wheel when he was thinking too much, how he never said what he felt until someone pushed him. Today, he wasn't tapping. Today, he was silent. The drive moved quickly, but the moments inside the car felt stretched, almost suspended. Emily could feel time slipping through her fingers, and she hated the way it made her chest tighten. She had planned every detail of this move so carefully: the job offer, the apartment, the travel schedule, but she hadn't prepared for this car ride. She hadn't prepared for the way her heart twisted every time she looked at Ryan. She shifted slightly in her seat. "Thanks again for driving me," she said softly. He glanced at her, his voice low and steady. "You don't have to thank me. I wanted to." The way he said it made something inside her flutter and ache all at once. She looked down at her hands, twisting them gently in her lap. She wondered if he meant that the way she thought he did. She wondered if maybe in another life or another moment, she would have asked him what exactly he wanted. The road stretched long ahead of them, lined with bare trees and winter gray skies. Everything outside felt cold, but the inside of the car felt warm to warm. Not because of the heater, but because of everything they weren't saying. Emily swallowed hard. She wanted to break the silence, to say something real. But every time she tried to open her mouth, her courage failed her. She knew she couldn't change her plans now. She had accepted the job. She had packed her life. She had made the decision to leave, but sitting next to Ryan, watching the familiar way he drove, she felt regret blooming deep inside her. Ryan glanced at her again. "You okay?" She nodded quickly. "Yeah, just thinking." He didn't push her to explain, and she didn't offer more. But both of them knew she wasn't okay, and neither was he. The car continued down the road, moving toward a moment neither of them wanted to reach. They both pretended to look ahead, but their thoughts were tangled in the same place, wondering if this simple car ride was their last chance to say the things they had locked away for too long. Emily leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about all the almost moments between them, the almost questions, the almost confessions, the almost romance that stayed just out of reach. She wondered if leaving would erase those moments or make them hurt even more. As the city skyline slowly appeared in the distance, she felt a quiet fear settle in her heart. The airport was closer now. Time was fading. Choices were narrowing. This was supposed to be a simple ride. It's just an hour on the road. It's just a goodbye, but nothing about this goodbye felt simple anymore. The highway opened wide in front of them, long and straight, stretching toward a city that Emily wasn't sure she wanted to reach. The morning sky was heavy with gray clouds, and the soft hum of the car filled the quiet space between her and Ryan. Even though the car was moving at a steady speed, Emily felt as if she were being pulled toward something she wasn't ready for. Ryan kept his eyes on the road, his posture calm, but the tension in his shoulders said more than his expression ever would. He was trying to act normal, but nothing about this drive felt normal. She was leaving. In just a couple of hours, he would drop her off, watch her disappear into the airport, and drive home alone. He hadn't prepared himself for that. Emily watched him from the corner of her eye. The way his jaw stayed tight, the way he gripped the steering wheel a little too firmly, the way his eyes looked deeper than usual, as if he was fighting a storm inside. She knew him too well not to notice. The silence pressed on both of them. She wanted him to speak. She wanted him to say something that would give her a reason to stay. But she also feared what she might do if he actually said it. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. "You excited for the new job?" Emily looked out the window, watching the rows of trees blur past. "I guess," she said quietly. He waited for her to say more, but she didn't. Her answer felt hesitant, dry, not at all like someone excited for a new adventure. He knew her real voice wealthy, one she used when she was genuinely happy. This wasn't it. Ryan tapped his thumb lightly against the steering wheel, a small habit he always had when he was lost in thought. Emily noticed it right away. That tiny motion told her he was thinking about something he didn't want to say out loud. "You'll do great," he said, trying to sound supportive. "Thanks," she replied, though her chest tightened a little more. Another stretch of silence fell over them. It wasn't angry or cold. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people have too many things in their hearts and no courage to let them out. Emily finally asked Ryan, "Are you okay?" He opened his mouth to answer, then paused. "Yeah," he said quickly. Just thinking. She didn't push. She didn't have to. She already knew he wasn't okay. She could feel it as clearly as she felt her own sadness. She leaned back in her seat and let out a slow breath. The truth was, she wasn't okay either. Her move to Seattle wasn't just about a job. It was about escaping the confusion she had felt around Ryan for months. She cared for him too much, maybe more than she should. Every time he smiled at her, every time he remembered the little things she liked, Every time he showed up without her asking, her heart leaned closer to him. But he never said he felt the same, and she didn't know how long she could hold those feelings quietly. As the city highway opened wider, Emily turned to him again. "It's strange," she said. "What is this drive? It feels different." Ryan's fingers tightened on the wheel. "Yeah." Emily waited for him to say more. He didn't. She swallowed hard. "I know I told everyone I'm excited. But I don't know. I'm scared too." He looked at her briefly before returning his focus to the road. "It's okay to be scared. Big changes are scary. It just feels like I'm leaving a lot behind," she whispered. Ryan felt something twist inside him, sharp and unexpected. He wanted to ask her who exactly she meant by a lot. Was she talking about the town, her old life, their friendship, or him? He steadied his voice. "You're not losing anything. People who care about you will stay in your life." Emily gave a soft smile, but it was a sad one. "Will they?" Ryan didn't answer. He didn't know how to promise something he wasn't sure he could control. What if she moved on? What if distance pulled them apart? What if this goodbye was the beginning of an ending neither of them wanted? Emily looked down at her hands. "I hate goodbyes." "Yeah," Ryan said quietly. "Me too." She wondered if he meant goodbye to her specifically. She wondered if his voice trembled slightly because of her. She wanted to ask him. She wanted to push through the wall between them. But she stopped herself. She didn't want to hear an answer she couldn't handle. Minutes passed and the tension in the car felt heavier. She watched the road ahead, but her thoughts kept circling around the same questions. Does he want me to stay? Does he care more than he shows? Do I mean as much to him as he does to me? Ryan's thoughts weren't any kinder. He had rehearsed what he wanted to say last night, lying awake for hours, turning over sentences in his mind. Tell her she matters. Tell her you don't want her to go. Tell her you've liked her for longer than you should. But none of those sentences made it. Out of his mouth he kept hearing the same fear whispering back at him. What if she doesn't feel the same? Emily shifted slightly in her seat. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" His heart jumped. "Yeah, anything." She hesitated. "Do you think leaving is a mistake?" He glanced at her, his eyes soft but conflicted. "I think sometimes mistakes only feel like mistakes because of the people we leave behind." Emily felt her breath catch. He wasn't saying everything, but he was saying enough for her heart to react. She looked out the window again, blinking faster than usual. She didn't want him to see how emotional she suddenly felt. Ryan added quietly, "But I also think you're strong enough to build a life anywhere." His voice was steady, but his eyes were sad. Emily whispered, "I don't feel strong right now." "You don't have to," he said. The car continued its steady path, but the emotional distance between them kept shrinking. Every small word, every broken silence, every glance carried something heavier. Something real. Rain began to fall lightly, as if the sky itself knew they were running out of time. Emily whispered, "Ryan, after today, things will change, won't they?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he let out a breath that sounded like surrender. "Yeah," he finally said, "they will." A soft ache spread through her chest. Neither of them said what they truly meant. "I don't want things to change. I don't want to lose you. I care about you more than I can say." They just kept driving, the city drawing closer, the moments slipping away, and the words they desperately needed staying, hidden locked somewhere between fear and hope. The sky shifted from cloudy gray to a soft drizzle as Ryan and Emily drove deeper into the city. The raindrops tapped lightly against the windshield, creating a steady rhythm that filled the quiet inside the car. It was gentle, but it felt like a reminder time was moving forward. And so was the moment neither of them wanted to reach. Emily watched the rain slide down the window, each drop blurring the world outside, to match the confusion inside her chest. She didn't know how to put her feelings into words, and she definitely didn't know how to say them at the edge of a goodbye. Ryan drove slower than before, his mind tangled in thoughts he could no longer avoid. The closer they got to the airport, the heavier his heart felt. He tried to focus on the road, but every small sound, every sigh from Emily, made him wonder if he was letting something important slip away. He finally spoke, his voice low. "I'm going to miss you, Em." Those simple words made her heart twist. They weren't dramatic or overly emotional, but they carried something, real something she had been trying not to think about. She turned toward him, her voice soft. "Did you make it sound like I'm disappearing?" Ryan let out a breath. "It'll be different. You know that?" Emily didn't argue. He was right. They both knew it. Calls would become rare, messages would slow down, visits would take planning. Distance always changed things, no matter how much people promised otherwise. She shifted slightly, trying to steady her voice. "I didn't want to go alone. That's why I asked you to drive me." Ryan glanced at her, surprised by how honest her tone sounded. "I'm glad you did." But the warmth in his words didn't ease the ache inside her. She wasn't glad because of convenience. She was glad because she needed one last moment with him. One last memory before everything changed. The rain grew heavier, and Ryan turned on the wipers. The slow swish of the blades filled the silence. Emily looked at him, studying the tension in his eyes. "You haven't said much," she whispered. He kept his eyes on the road. "Because I'm trying to figure out what to say about what." He hesitated. "About you leaving?" Emily swallowed hard. This was the conversation she feared and wished for at the same time. "What do you want to say?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he kept driving, hands tight on the wheel. The silence grew heavier, building like a storm inside the car. Then he spoke almost too softly. "Sometimes I wish this wasn't happening." Emily felt her breath catch. She had waited months, maybe years, to hear something close to that. "You mean the move?" Ryan nodded. "Yeah." She wasn't ready for the wave of emotion that washed over her. She looked out the window, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "I've been thinking the same." Honesty between them grew suddenly warm and painful. Ryan finally turned his head toward her, and the look in his eyes made her chest ache even more. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. It was just real, raw, quiet, and true. The airport. Exit sign appeared in the distance, bright against the gray sky. Seeing it made Emily's stomach drop. She wasn't ready. Not for the airport, not for the goodbye, not for the conversation that felt too late. Ryan's voice was rough around the edges. "Em, don't want to lose you." She closed her eyes for a moment. The words cut deep in the most gentle way. "You won't," she said softly. But even she didn't believe it fully. The car slowed as they approached the exit. The rain softened, turning into a light mist that glowed under the streetlights. The world outside looked blurry, almost dreamlike. But the heaviness inside the car felt painfully sharp. Emily leaned back in her seat, trying to breathe. "I thought leaving would make everything easier," she said quietly. "But now, I'm not sure." Ryan swallowed hard. "What changed?" She looked at him with eyes full of emotion she couldn't hide anymore. Her voice wasn't loud, but it held everything she had been holding in for too long: fear, longing, confusion, and something deeper that she never managed to speak. Ryan's grip on the steering wheel loosened for the first time since they left her house. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I didn't think you felt that way." Emily let out a small, shaky breath. "I didn't think you did." He exhaled slowly, almost like he had been holding his breath the entire drive. "Emily, why didn't you say something sooner?" She looked down at her hands. "I didn't want to ruin what we had. And you never said anything either?" "I was scared," Ryan admitted. "I didn't want to push you or make you uncomfortable." The honesty between them felt warm and sharp at the same time. Beautiful. But arriving too late, Emily whispered. So we both stayed quiet. Ryan nodded. Yeah. The car rolled slowly through the airport road, passing signs for departures and terminals. Every sign felt like a countdown. Emily's voice softened again. I thought distance would help me forget the feelings. But this drive, it's making everything stronger. Ryan looked at her with eyes full of something tender. Me too. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, breathing in the same air, feeling the same pull. Knowing they were headed toward a goodbye that didn't match the emotions finally coming to the surface, Emily finally asked, "What do we do now?" He shook his head slightly. I don't know. The airport drop-off lane appeared ahead, filled with rushing people and bright lights. Emily felt the moment slipping away, like sand sliding through her fingers. Ryan parked slowly, carefully, as if delaying every second he could. When the engine turned off, the car fell silent again, but this silence was different. It was emotional, fragile, full of everything they had been too afraid to say for too long. Emily whispered, "This doesn't feel like a normal goodbye." Ryan looked at her, heartbreak in his eyes, because it isn't. She felt her throat tighten, her eyes burning, her heart fighting between leaving and staying. And just as she reached for the door handle, she wondered a question that froze her in place. Are we saying goodbye because we have to, or because we never found the courage to say something else? The airport drop-off lane buzzed with noise-rolling suitcases, quick footsteps, short goodbyes, and engines starting and stopping. But inside Ryan's car, everything felt still. The world outside rushed forward, but the two of them sat frozen. In a moment they didn't want to face, Emily kept her hand on the door handle, but she didn't push it open. Her heart felt too heavy, her breath too unsteady. She could leave. She was supposed to leave. Shrey had planned every detail of this move for weeks. But now, with Ryan beside her, nothing felt clear anymore. Ryan stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his voice trapped somewhere deep in his chest. He had never felt this kind of silence between them, one filled with unresolved truth. He didn't want to rush her, but he also didn't want her to walk away without knowing how deeply he cared. Finally, Emily broke the silence. I thought I'd feel ready when we got here, she whispered. Ryan turned to her. Do you? She shook her head. No, not at all. He looked down at his hands. Maybe that means something. Emily's heart pulled hard at those words. She wanted to ask what he meant, but she already knew. She just wasn't brave enough to face it. Not yet. She took a slow breath. Ryan, why didn't we talk about this before today? He didn't look away this time, because I didn't want to risk losing what we already had. Our friendship is the best part of my life. I didn't want to ruin it. Her eyes softened. You wouldn't have ruined anything? He almost smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I didn't know that. Emily swallowed. I felt the same fear. I kept everything inside because I thought you didn't feel the same. Ryan leaned back, his voice filled with quiet regret. So we both hid it. Yeah, she whispered. The truth hung between them, heavy, honest, and painful. They were, to people who cared deeply, but waited too long to say it. Now they were sitting at the edge of a goodbye that felt bigger than miles or airports. It felt like losing a chance they never dared to take. Emily's eyes moved to the crowds outside. People hugged, cried, laughed, waved. Every expression of emotion seemed allowed out there. But inside the car, she felt trapped between her future and her heart. Ryan finally spoke. Emily, I don't know what the right thing is. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you to stay or if I'm supposed to support you and let you go. She looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you want? That question hit him hard. No hiding, no careful answers. Just truth. Ryan exhaled slowly. I want you to stay. I want more time with you. I want us. He paused, voice thick with emotion. But I don't want to hold you back from your dreams. Emily's eyes stung. She had waited so long too. Hear those words. Part of her felt warm, almost relieved. But another part hurt because the timing felt wrong. She whispered, "Ryan, if you had said this weeks ago, I think everything would be different." He nodded slowly. "I know. Should have said something." Emily wiped a tear before it fell. "I don't want to lose what we have either. But leaving now feels like I'm losing something important." Ryan shifted closer, his voice soft yet urgent. "Then don't let this be the end. We don't have to stop being us." Distance doesn't erase feelings, it just tests them. Emily listened carefully. His words were steady, honest, hopeful. But her heart was torn. "I wish I knew what the right choice was," she whispered. Ryan looked at her gently. "Maybe the right choice is the one you won't regret later." She looked down at her ticket, folded in her bag. For the first time, it didn't feel like a symbol of opportunity. It felt like a question. It's a heavy, complicated question. The loudspeaker outside announced flight updates. Emily's flight time was getting closer. She tightened her grip on the handle again. "I should go inside." Ryan nodded, though his eyes dimmed. "Yeah, okay." She slowly opened the door. Cold air rushed in, mixing with the warmth of the car. She stepped out and grabbed her suitcase from the back. Every motion felt slower than it should. Ryan also stepped out, walking around to meet her on the sidewalk. The airport lights reflected softly on both of them, creating a glow around the moment that felt too fragile to touch. He handed her the suitcase handle. She took it, but her hand shook. Ryan watched her cautiously. "Emily." She looked up, her eyes full of unsaid words. "You mean a lot to me," he said quietly. She swallowed hard. "You mean a lot to me, too." A family walking by brushed past them, laughing, rushing toward the doors. Life around them kept moving, but their moments stayed still. Emily finally pulled her suitcase upright. The wheels clicked lightly on the ground. Ryan stepped back, giving her space, though it clearly hurt him to do so. She took one small step toward the door, then stopped. Her heart wouldn't let her move. She turned back. "Ryan." He froze. "Yeah." She breathed in deeply. "Tell me something before I go." He stepped closer. "Anything." "Will we find our way back to each other?" Squay asked softly. Ryan looked at her with a steady, deep sincerity. "If something is real, it doesn't disappear, no matter how far you go. And this," he paused, eyes softening, "this is real." Emily felt something warm spread through her chest, calming her fear for a second. She gave him a small, shaky smile. "Then I hope you're right." Another announcement echoed overhead her flight boarding. She took a step toward the entrance. The automatic doors opened, welcoming her into a new chapter. Ryan stayed where he stood, watching her. He didn't call out to stop her. He didn't rush forward. He just watched, eyes full of longing, pride, and heartbreak. At once, Emily paused one last time at the doorway, turned slightly, and met his eyes across the distance. Their hearts spoke the words neither of them said aloud. "This isn't the end, but it is a goodbye, the unexpected kind, the painful kind, the kind that stays with you." Emily gave him one final nod, small, emotional, brave, before turning and walking inside. Ryan watched until she disappeared into the crowd. Then he whispered to himself, soft and broken, "Goodbye, Em." And as he turned back toward the car, he realized that the simple ride they shared that morning had changed everything between them forever.